Hi there, this is Pete Davison from the Squadron of Shame once again, and this is Monday Night Bullet Hell. This week we're taking a look at a Western developed bullet hell shooter called Jamestown. It's created by Final Form Games from America, and it has the unusual premise of being set on Mars in the 17th century. Jamestown is an English colony which has come under attack from the Spanish, who are in league with the Martians, and the player, in the role of Sir Walter Raleigh, and later on some of his companions, has to try and clear his name, and also deal with all the assorted nastiness that's going on. So here's our intro sequence, and you can see from it that there's this lovely retro pixel art style to the whole thing. Even when running at 1080p like we are here, it's got this lovely sort of chunky pixel look, and pixel art looks great in high definition, as any connoisseurs of the art form will know. Right, here's our main menu. We won't go through the other stuff, we'll just jump straight into the game and start talking about what makes it so great and why you should play it. Alright, here's our map screen. Unlike most Japanese developed bullet hell shooters, in Jamestown you tackle the levels individually, one at a time. There's 5 of them to do. The first 3 you can play on any difficulty level. The last 2 you have to do on specific difficulty levels. You can't do them on the easiest difficulty level. And on the last one, you can't do it on the second easiest difficulty level either. So by the time you reach the game's final boss, you should hopefully have developed the skills to be able to play at the higher levels. There's also a gauntlet mode over here, which takes a more traditional bullet hell game style structure, where you play every level back to back using a limited number of credits. If you're feeling super confident, you can try and do it on just 1 credit. There's even an achievement in it for you if you do that. Most of us though will probably need those 2 credits. Down the side here we've got a selection of bonus levels that you unlock throughout the course of the game as well. These are super difficult. And we'll have a look at those later on if we have time. There's a shop here as well. You earn coins throughout the course of each level, and you can purchase extra modes for the game. So gauntlet mode, for example, you don't have to begin with. Certain ships you don't have access to at the beginning of the game either. You have to earn ducats throughout the course of the game to unlock these things. Certain things have specific unlock requirements as well. So for example, in order to purchase the Judgment difficulty level here, you've got to beat every level on Divine difficulty as well, which is pretty much a huge challenge. Same for the challenge packs. You have to beat a certain number of challenges to be able to unlock each one. So challenge pack 5 here, I have to beat all the previous challenges before I can take on these new ones. There's also a link to go and download the November 5th DLC pack there, which adds a few new ships and some challenges. We've got full leaderboard support through Steam here, so we can take a look at that, and you can either see the global leaderboards for each level, for gauntlet mode, and you can also filter it by your Steam friends as well. Right, so let's jump in. Yeah, so as I don't make a complete fool of myself, I'm going to play on normal difficulty. I'm going to turn on the prologue as well. That shows you the story sequences between levels. So, let's start. Now, Jamestown allows up to 4 people to play simultaneously, using any combination of mouse, controller and keyboard. You can plug in as many of each as you like. Bind players at the start of each level, and then you can rebind your controls as you see fit as well. It's just me here at the moment, so I'll say we're ready. There's 4 ships to choose from. Most of these you have to unlock as well. You start with the beam ship over here, which has a large, high-powered forward-firing laser beam and a spread cannon. The gunner has a narrower beam of fire, but allows you to aim wherever you like on the screen. The charge ship fires out large globes of slow-moving energy and has a fairly narrow normal attack. And the bomber ship has the ability to detonate your bullets on the screen. Now you can see in the little picture we've got there as well, it shows you where the hitbox is on your ship as well. Now, unlike some bullet hell games, there's no conveniently little flashing spot in the middle of your sprite to show you where you need to avoid getting hit by. So in this, it's just a case of knowing that you shouldn't be getting hit roughly in the middle of your player sprite. Right, we'll start with the beam ship, because that's what you start the game with. And this is the first chapter. Some more of that lovely pixel art. The story can all be skipped if you want to jump straight into the action. Despite its ridiculous premise, it is quite an interesting story, so at least the first time you play it through, you may want to read through all this text as well, because it gives some context to all the destruction. And Jamestown makes some interesting choices with regard to storytelling, as we'll see when we come on to some of the later levels. The basic premise is Sir Walter Raleigh is hoping to earn amnesty for his unspecified crimes, which he may or may not have committed. And he's going to do that by trying to trace down the lost colony of Roanoke. And into the level. One nice thing about Jamestown's presentation is this lovely sort of 17th century book intro to each level. This reminds me of Dr. Samuel Johnson and that sort of thing. Right, here we are into the level. We're using the beam ships, whose default attack is this spread cannon here. Or by pressing its special attack button, you can do this large beam as well, but that slows down your movement. Now you can see while I'm destroying things, I'm picking up these golden nuts and bolts as well. And they fill the meter in the top left of the screen. It's called your Vaunt meter. When that's full, you can press your Vaunt button, and this happens. You get a shield around your ship for a very brief period of time, which cancels out bullets and gives you points for them, and also doubles your score for the amount of time that you continue to be in Vaunt mode, shown by that weird pink glowy effect around the sprite. Now you can refill your Vaunt meter as you're flying along by picking up more of the gold nuts and bolts, and the main key to scoring big in Jamestown is keeping in Vaunt mode for as long as you can, so trying to keep collecting those things as you go, trying to keep destroying enemies and keep that as high as possible for as long as possible. When Vaunt runs out, you do get a big bonus as well. As you can see on the ground there, we've got some of the English forces helping us out. And there's the end of our Vaunt bonus. Now you can see on normal difficulty the bullet patterns aren't too hard to avoid, they're quite slow moving. They do get tougher later on, but for the most part, if you're a beginner to the genre, this is a great place to start, because it's not so punishingly difficult from the very beginning that you'll never be able to get anywhere. Now you might have noticed while I was shooting some of these things, you're getting this little thing that says special pop up as well. Certain enemies, if you shoot them with specific weapons or time it with particular frames of animation, then you'll get more in the way of these nuts and bolts to pick up, which fills your Vaunt meter quicker and allows you to get much higher scores. Here's our first boss. Now, like most bosses in bullet hell games, they're largely pattern based, so you find yourself learning what the patterns are, learning what the best weapons are to use against them, and learning how to avoid their various attacks. Its health bar at the top is divided into several segments as well. Defeat one segment of a health bar and it'll change up its attack patterns into something slightly different. And the same is true for all the bosses in here. So there we are, we've beaten it by half. So we're now down to dealing with these attack patterns here. There we are, we've got a Vaunt now. So we can use that to block off those bullets, and you see we score points for any bullets that we block. If you cancel your Vaunt early, you get another shield that's a bit smaller and doesn't last for as long, but it also allows you to get out of a scrape in here. That's to make up for the fact that there's no bombs in this game like there were in, say, Gundamanium Recollection that we looked at last week. So Vaunt is your main means of protecting yourself from death, as well as scoring high values of points. Up at the top as well, you see we got a series of stars there, a bit like Guitar Hero. You have a certain number of stars to try and acquire throughout the course of a level. We got 4 stars there, which wasn't great. I can do better than that, but hey, whatever. There we are, at the end of a level. It tells you how many enemies you destroyed, what your average score multiplier was, so from that you can determine how long you spend in Vaunt mode. Your highest combo is how many points you scored from staying in Vaunt mode. And again, there's achievements based on keeping in Vaunt mode for various periods of time on the different difficulty levels. Also shows you how many credits you used, how many hits you took, and how many players were revived along the way as well if you're playing in multiplayer mode. The multiplayer mode is another good way for people who aren't very experienced in the genre to get into it, because there's quite a friendly respawn system where as long as one player stays alive, a bit like in something like, say, Left 4 Dead or something like that, you can respawn the other players and help them out. At the end of a level as well, we get a bonus to our ducats. Each level's got a base number of ducats you earn multiplied by how much of the level you complete, what difficulty mode you're on, and whether or not you beat the boss. So if you still get ducats if you didn't finish the level, you just don't get this double multiplier at the end for beating the boss. After each level there's another story sequence. More lovely pixel art. We'll skip over this. You can also skip it completely by pressing and holding like that, and that takes you straight back to the menus. Okay, let's take a look at the next level, and let's take a look at a different ship as well. I'll stick on normal mode for now. And let's try out the gunner ship. In which Raleigh is pursued by the vigilant Spanish border guard, and the awful truth stands revealed. Right, we're using the gunner ship now. The gunner ship, you see, its basic attack is a little bit different. Just forward firing. Now, unlike the beam ship, the special attack in this one is not a different attack. All it allows you to do is to aim that beam elsewhere. So you still have a forward firing cannon, but you can fire the rest of it wherever you like on the screen. That means you can hide out the way of bullets and still be able to hit things. Whoops. First death, disappointing. Getting cocky. Got some quite tough enemies on this one here. So these aren't bosses or anything, but they still take quite a few hits and have some quite nasty bullet patterns, particularly on the higher difficulty levels. Fortunately, the gunner ship makes dealing with them a little bit easier because you can stay out of the way of most of their attacks. Sudden rainstorm. As Mars is, after all, known for its occasional torrential downpours. Now this bit here is a good example of how Jamestown deals with its storytelling. It's environmental. So you see there's no cutscenes in the middle of levels, there's no speech. But if you look at the background while you're playing, you'll notice that the scenery you're flying over, even the enemies you're fighting, are contributing to the story. I won't spoil that now because I know we skipped over the story at the beginning of the level, but suffice to say it's very cool. Everything from the background art to the enemies to the music is contributing to telling this ongoing story. So if you care about that sort of thing, it's there for you to notice. If you don't care about that sort of thing, though, the advantage of this approach is it's easy to ignore as well, because basically all you're doing is you're still shooting stuff. You see there's a nice mix of enemies from sort of traditional alien ship type things, and now we're into sort of squidgy gooey things that like to spew things on us and explode into bullets. On the higher difficulty levels this gets very, very tricky right here, because pretty much every single one of those green gooey things is spewing bullets at you. Now here on normal it's pretty straightforward. But imagine those clumps of bullets having more bullets in them, moving a bit faster, and you can imagine how difficult this gets later on. If we have time, we'll take a look at one of the higher difficulty levels just so you can see what you're missing out on. As I say, the relative simplicity of this game makes it a really nice introduction to the genre for newbies. Even the scoring system isn't too complicated. One of the things about shooters from developers like Cave is that the scoring system is considerably more complicated than the game mechanics might suggest it should be. In this, it's very much a case of collect as many of the gold things as you can, go into Vaunt mode to get double points, and time that properly to get as many points as possible. And also don't die, because you get bonuses at the end of the level for not using your credits. This is our boss. This is the Lady of the Lake, looking a little bit different from how she did in The Witcher. And the Legend of King Arthur. I say The Witcher because that's the last time I saw her. Now again, for those new to the genre, a lot of the skill in bullet hell games is keeping an eye on your own ship on screen rather than specifically shooting at things. So a lot of the time, particularly in complex bullet patterns, you'll be keeping an eye on where you are as opposed to where the enemies are, so that you can navigate safely around the bullets on screen. It's okay when there's not many of them on screen like that, but when there's more complex bullet patterns, you have to really take care to avoid everything. Alright, there we go, another level down. Another 4 stars. Poor performance. But apparently a high score. There we go. The thing with star rating here is you can actually get higher scores on the higher difficulty level. So if you're going for high scores or chasing your friends on the leaderboards, then you're better off playing on the higher difficulty levels, because there aren't specific leaderboards for each difficulty. It does show what difficulty level each person achieved their high score on though. So if you see that your friend has been doing things on a difficulty level slightly higher than you, then all you need to know that you just need to bump up the difficulty level slightly to be able to get those higher scores. Alright, we'll skip the story this time, because I won't spoil it for those of you who haven't played it. And let's take a look at the next level. Normal. And we'll take a look at one of the other ships. Let's use the charge ship this time. This is a slow but strong ship. Prison break is affected by simply attacking the prison or always robotic guards in broad daylight. Here we are. So the charge ship, as you can see, has a fairly weedy basic attack. What it does have though is that giant ball on the front of it, which you can fling out like that, and it crashes through everything in its path, normally destroying it, even the tougher enemies. Like that, as you can see. The disadvantage is it's quite difficult to get at things that are behind you. Like these flying saucers have a habit of getting behind you, so you have to kind of fly around them like that. And sometimes you still die. This level introduces those bombs on the ground as well. And the special bonus you get for those is destroying them just before they blow up. Unfortunately, time that wrong and you'll be showered in bullets. And one thing I haven't mentioned yet is the excellent soundtrack to this game that you can probably hear in the background now, which hopefully isn't drowning out my voice too much. It's a really, really good soundtrack that fits the action perfectly. It's not the sort of cheesy thing you get in a lot of bullet hell games. It's certainly not the same kind of thing you get in Gundamanium that we looked at last week, or in some of Cave's titles. But it fits the theme of the game perfectly. It's got Spanish influences, classical influences, all that sort of thing. And it makes the whole thing suitably dramatic. You might argue that this sort of level of polish is unnecessary for this kind of game, but it certainly doesn't hurt. These things here are quite interesting because they're environmental hazards and enemies as well. So you destroy some of those, and their partner over there starts firing bullets at you. They form quite an important part of some maze-like structures that you come across a bit later in the game and in some of the bonus levels. the boss with just 2 stars. This isn't going to be a good score. The Dread Sentry. Charge ship, you see, it takes a short while for that globe to charge up again, hence the name. So you can fire it early, but it doesn't do nearly as much damage if you fire it while it's still small. Another enemy defeated for great justice. You see, at the end of each level you get nice little titles as well, so if you're playing in multiplayer and you used to enjoy collecting the titles in games like GoldenEye and that sort of thing, then this has got that same kind of thing there, where you can, depending on how you played, you'll get different names along the way. So for example, get through a whole level without taking a single hit and you'll be known as the perfect player. In this case I didn't use a credit, so I'm the credit saver, and so on. Let's skip the story and we'll take a look at the last ship. Now this is the first of the levels that we can't play on normal difficulty level, so we got to jump in on difficult this time. And we'll try the bomber ship. The bomber ship's a strange one because it's got a fairly weedy basic attack again, but it can detonate those bullets at any time by pressing the special attack button. And that makes him a bit more powerful, but it still doesn't have a very wide spread or anything like that. So this is probably the most difficult to use ship that there is. Also got some enemies that are a little bit more complex to defeat there. You have to shoot various bits off them before they'll die. Got these train enemies as well. And again, like most of the other enemies in the game, there's bonuses for destroying them in a certain order. So in the case of the trains, if you destroy all the cars first and then the engine at the front, you'll get a bigger bonus than you would do if you just destroyed it straight away. Some ground targets to deal with as well, and of course all of these are firing bullets at us. Oops. That wasn't very good, was it? Now you see, now we're on difficult mode rather than normal mode. There's quite a few more bullets on the screen. It's not overwhelmingly so though. So again, once you're up to this point in the game on normal mode, you should be able to handle it. There's a really nice difficulty curve, so rather than flinging you straight in at the deep end, as you hopefully saw earlier on, it's not too overwhelming. Ship actually handling this quite nicely. So despite its main gun not having much of a spread on it, the fact that the bullets can explode give them a slightly further reach than they would have normally. Here's our first sighting of the Conquistador. Okay, so you get 2 continues to take on every level. Unlike most bullet hell games, it doesn't reset your score when you continue. Of course, for most people it'll be a matter of pride to be able to beat levels without using a credit. Oops. And in fact, if you do beat levels without using a credit, then you get bigger bonuses at the end, so that's one of the things you get points for at the end of the level. So if you want to top your leaderboards, then you better do it without continuing. Unlike me, because I'm rubbish. I'm particularly rubbish with this ship, which might explain a lot. Oops, there we go, not going very well at all. Oh dear, I don't think I'm going to do this. There we go. Anyway, it gives you a chance to see what happens when you don't finish the level, which is what I intended to do in the first place, obviously. So there we go, we don't get the double ducats bonus for defeating the boss at the end. We do get a bigger multiplier for playing on a higher difficulty level, though. And there we go. When you fail a level, you can either try it again straight away, you can change your ships, or you can go back to the level select screen. Okay, other stuff we got in here. Gauntlet mode we've talked about. That lets you play every level back to back using just 2 credits and then gives you a total score for the whole thing. Let's take a quick look at the bonus level. So these are short challenges that you can play with 1 to 4 players. Each of them has a different objective to do. That could be anything from flying through rings to surviving for a particular length of time. So let's start with the first one here, Hopper's Revenge, in which we have to survive for 60 seconds. Let's take the gunner ship for this one. If you look at the leaderboards, the gunner ship seems to be the weapon of choice for most people who've got the ridiculously high scores. So, learning how to use this is an important skill from the sound of things. So down there, those are the hoppers. So named for obvious reasons. All we have to do is survive for 60 seconds, which I've miserably failed to do there. Let's try that again. So there's no score to worry about here. The only reason you'd want to use Vaughn in this mode is to protect yourself. So if you're in a sticky situation, there's no real point holding on to Vaughn just for the sake of score, because there is no score. So if that's the case, just cancel it, collect some more gold, and use it again. Will I make it? There we go. Success. I am the best at that level. Anyway, you get the idea. Let's play another one. This one's a little bit different. You have to fly through the rings. Let's take the beam ship for this one. Now, although it's superficially similar to sort of a Japanese-developed bullet hell shooter, this is noticeably Western in a lot of its execution, so we don't have sort of scantily clad anime girls as enemies, or player characters for that matter. The storyline's still ridiculous, but it's not quite as ridiculous as, say, the one we had in Gundamanium, where we've got flying girls shooting at things that don't have any underpants on. And they really don't have any underpants on. If you don't believe me, then go back and take a look at that footage, and you'll see that a lot of the enemies aren't wearing any pants. Which is surprising. In this case, there's none of that frivolity. we've just got pure bullet hell gameplay. Maybe I won't do that one because it's difficult. Let's try this one. As you can see from a number of bonus levels as well, there's a large amount of content on offer in this game, which is nice. A lot of bullet hell games stick with pretty much just the levels you've got. They might have a slightly different mode of playing through them. For example, cave shooters often come with variants in the arcade modes. They often have a black label mode or a version 1.1 or that sort of thing. But ultimately you're still playing through the same levels, maybe with a slightly different scoring system. What we've got in this though is we've got a considerable amount of extra content on top of just the basic levels. The fact you can play each level through individually is a good means of practicing them before taking on gauntlet mode, and then the bonus levels are good for practicing specific skills like dodging or dealing with particular types of enemies and that kind of thing. So all in all, it's a really nicely balanced package. It's got a lot on offer even without the extra DLC, which is available now, and that offers you 3 new ships to get to grips with, all with a sort of Guy Fawkes theme. And there's also some extra challenge missions to take on there as well. I haven't downloaded that myself yet, so I don't know exactly what it offers, but it's there if you want it. So that's Jamestown. It's one of the better introductions to the genre if you've never played it before. If you like the old sort of traditional shoot 'em ups on various consoles like the Genesis, Mega Drive and Super NES and that sort of thing, then this is a good one to go for. It's got a nice balance between newbie friendly gameplay and ridiculous challenges. So finally then, just to give you an idea of ridiculous challenges, let's take a look at the last level, which you have to play on Legendary or Divine difficulty. Now, as you might expect, as the final level, which you can only play on higher difficulty levels, this is rather challenging. Really gives you a pretty badass soundtrack to fight your final battle. Now, I'm making no guarantees of being able to make it through here because I usually don't. But hey, who knows? So you see on this level for the first time we got branching routes. We've got some quite complex bullet patterns that form part of the geography of the level as well. So as well as having to deal with levels, you're having to deal with static installations that are spewing out bullets at you as well. As well as this sequence that we come out to here, which is quite irritating if you don't know what you're doing. Whoops. We've got crushy blocks that can kill you straight away, which is nice. Some might say cheap. But once you know how to navigate your way through them, you can get through them without too much difficulty. Gunnership comes into its own on this level because there's a lot of walls you can't move through, but you can fire through, so you need to take full advantage of that fact. Spiky things, no one likes spikes. Except game designers, who love spikes. Whoops. Great thing about a gunnership is you can just spray it around like a drunk man in a rhino. That can be quite an effective tactic at times, and other times it can be completely useless, so use it when you feel it may be appropriate. More spiky things. Frogger-inspired action. And crushy things. More spiky things. As you can see, this level is trying its best to either kill you or drive you insane. and it does a pretty good job of that. Your first run through this level will kill you extremely quickly. In subsequent playthroughs you might be able to get towards the end. The challenge is getting to the end with enough lives to be able to make it through the upcoming boss confrontation. So here we are. It's the main antagonist of the game, the Conquistador. Who obviously has a giant robotic exoskeleton. Fortunately, he's rather vulnerable to being shot. You see with most of the bosses as well, they drop those gold tokens along the way to give you access to Vaunt mode if you think you might need it, which in a lot of cases you will. Almost there. That's close. There we are, he's almost down. Have we saved Mars from the fury of the Spanish conquistador? No, of course we haven't. Of course there's a true final boss. With some excellent music. This final boss is a great example of the excellent boss design in here. So it's a combination of pattern spotting, figuring out how to defeat it, and just plain good old-fashioned skill. And at times a bit of luck as well. Not in my case, obviously, because I am skill. Mad skill. And that. Whoops. Except not there. Just forget I said anything. He's half dead. Oops. So am I. Unless I make a massive error in the next short while, we should hopefully be able to do this. Gunner ship comes into its own here, where you can keep out of the way of the bullets and still damage him. Always good. And he's down. Last minute Vaunt just for a couple of extra bonus points. There we go. No credit bonus for me. And that's Jamestown. So, I hope you enjoyed this look at it. You can check it out now on Steam. There's probably some other places you can get it from as well, but the copy I got was from Steam and makes use of things like Steam achievements and Steam leaderboards as well. So, for my money, that's the version to get hold of. It's pretty cheap too as well, so don't expect to be paying 40 quid for this game because, well, you won't have to. Even the DLC is pretty cheap as well, so if you want the complete Jamestown experience, then it's going to cost you considerably less than a full price game. So, check it out. And for now, I am going to say goodbye and quit.